so it was quite hard for her to balance. She was in leggings today and a t-shirt with a man's face. I guessed he was a rock star. She had a Walkman on and she was bobbing her orange head in time to the music in her ears. She even did 1 or 2 funny little dance steps in spite of her shoes and the shopping. I smiled, and she suddenly looked up and saw me. I bobbed back behind the curtain, my heart thudding. I heard the squeak of the Williams gate and a clack, clack, clack. I peeped round the curtain. She was still craning up at me. When she saw me looking, she waved again. I waved back, though I tried to wave my arm in the sling first and then changed to my good arm, feeling silly and clumsy. She started mouthing something. I thought she was singing along to her music, but she was looking straight at me. I squinted behind my glasses, trying to read her lips. It was no use. I shook my head hopelessly. She dumped the shopping on the path and made opening and pushing gestures. I didn't even get that for a minute, and then I realised she wanted me to open the window. But I couldn't open the big windows because they were fitted with special locks, so I had to shake my head again. She sighed with exasperation, her eyebrows raised, and then she picked up her bags and banged on the door with her elbow. She was so skinny, I was surprised it didn't hurt. I spent half the afternoon staring out of the window, hoping she might come out again. "Do stop mooning about, Mandy," said Mum. "I've made a nice cup of tea and we'll try a fairy cake, eh? Come on, cheer up." Mum lifted my plaits up either side of my head and pulled. I was supposed to smile. I shook my head free. "Mum, can I have my hair cut?" "Oh, darling, don't be silly. Your hair's lovely." "No, it's not. I've got sick of it long. And I don't want plaits anymore. No one has plaits nowadays. It just looks stupid. Can't I have my hair short and sort of sticking up?" "Like a bird's nest," said Mum, munching fairy cake. "Mum, has Mrs. Williams got any daughters? Real ones, I mean, not the foster babies." I started licking the icing off the top of my fairy cake. "Don't eat it like that, Pet. Yes, I think she's got one grown-up daughter in Canada." This girl isn't grown up." "Which girl?" "At the Williams house. I saw her yesterday and today. She was helping with one of the babies and doing the shopping." "Maybe she's a granddaughter then. About your age?" "Older." "Still, would be nice if you had someone to make friends with. Now that Melanie's turned so silly." I shivered, wanting to keep the whole scary school world separate. "Tell you what, Mandy, how about taking some of these cakes over to Mrs. Williams? There's far too many for us, and it'll give you the chance to get to know this girl." "No, Mum, no, I don't want to," I said, suddenly desperately shy. "Don't be so soppy," said Mum, arranging the cakes carefully on one of the plates. "There, over you go." "No, Mum, please, I'd feel stupid," I said. I desperately wanted to get to know the girl, and yet I really couldn't just march over and knock on their door. She'd smiled and waved, and yet she'd still pulled the face too. She looked as if she could be really, really tough if she wanted, even tougher than Kim. "You're a funny little puppet," Mum said fondly. "Shall I come with you?" "I don't want to go at all," I said, and I wouldn't budge. So Mum went over to see Mrs. Williams by herself. I waited in the kitchen, making a pattern in the cake crumbs. Mum was gone quite a long time. I wished I'd had the courage to go over by myself. Miranda Rainbow would have rushed over the road without a second thought. Why did I always have to be such a silly coward? Cowardy, cowardy custard. That was something they called me at school. And Baby, and Polly Pigtails, and Four Eyes, and Snobby Swat. Kim invented new names, new games almost every day. What would she do to me on Monday? I crammed another fairy cake in my mouth, even though I was starting to feel sick. Then I heard the front door. Mum was back, looking a little pink. Oh dear, that was a bit awkward," she said. "Mandy, you silly girl, you didn't tell me what this Tanya was like." Tanya, a lovely, exotic, unusual name. As good as Miranda. No, better. It really suited her. "Tanya," I said dreamily. "Do you know she calls Mrs. Williams Pat, not even Auntie Pat? Though of course she's not related," said Mum. "She's a foster child.
There was some trouble at her last home she was in. She's meant to be very good with the little children, so Mrs. Williams said she'd take her on for a few weeks. She says she's quite a helpful little thing considering. But whatever does she look like?
I think she looks lovely, I said.
Oh, Mandy,
said Mum, and she laughed at me.
Still, she seemed quite smitten with you too, asking all about you. And she wanted to ask you over to play, but I said you still weren't very well after a nasty accident and you were having a little lie down.
Mum?
But you said you didn't want to go over there. You insisted.
Yes, but if she wants me to...
Well, I'd really much sooner you didn't. A girl like that. You haven't got anything in common, and she's much older than you anyway. I thought she'd be at least 16, but she's only just 14. Can you credit it? The heels she was wearing. I hope Mrs. Williams knows what she's taking on.
Mum clucked her teeth. I crumbled the rest of my fairy cake, wishing and wishing I'd gone over to the Williams house myself. Tanya would think me a hopeless baby now, after the way Mum had talked about me. I was a hopeless baby. Tanya would never really want to make friends with me. But less than an hour later, there was a knock on the door, a jaunty rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat.
I wonder who that is,
said Mum, getting up. I knew.
Hiya,
said Tanya, as soon as Mum got the door open. She licked her lips as if she was chasing crumbs.
Thanks for the little cakes, they were smashing.
She held out the empty plate.
You haven't eaten them all,
said Mum, startled.
You bet I have,
said Tanya.
Well, Simon and Charlie licked the icing off a couple. The baby can't eat cakes because it hasn't got any teeth yet. And poor old Pat is trying to stick to this dopey old diet. So I got lucky, didn't I?
She patted her completely flat stomach and winked. She wasn't looking at Mum now. She was looking past her at me.
You're Mandy, right?
She said. I nodded.
Let's have a chat then,
said Tanya. And she marched into the hall in her high heels, neatly dodging Mum's big hip. Mum turned round, frowning.
Well, I really think Mandy ought to have a bit of a rest just now,
she said in her bossiest voice.
Perhaps another time.
When she uses that voice to me, my stomach always squeezes, and I do as I'm told. Tanya just laughed, not rudely. She had this beautiful sunny laugh that made you want to smile too, even Mum.
But she's had a rest, haven't you, Mandy? You want me to come and play with you, don't you?
She was talking to me as if I was much younger, one of Mrs. Williams's toddlers. I didn't care. I nodded, still unable to say a word. Tanya was right down the hall beside me now. She put out her hand and touched my arm. She wore purple nail varnish, though her nails were bitten right down so that the ends of her fingers bulged. But somehow, even they looked glamorous.
Show us your bedroom then,
said Tanya, giving me a little push. I started up the stairs obediently, Tanya following, tapping out a tune on the banister with her nibbled nails. Mum was left in the hall, the front door still open, though it was obvious Tanya was staying.
Well, just for 10 minutes then,
said Mum reluctantly. She still hovered uneasily. I was terrified she might come up too. I deliberately didn't look back at her, and when Tanya and I were in my bedroom, I shut the door. Wow, said Tanya, looking round. I blinked at her. It sounded as if she actually liked my room. Melanie had always been very dismissive.
It's all pink and pretty and girly,
said Tanya, kicking off her heels and jumping on my white fluffy rug. She wiggled her toes.
I've always wanted one of these rugs. How do you keep it so clean, eh? Oh, and I like your bed.
She took a running dive at it, bouncing happily on the pink sprigged duvet, then lying right down, her hair bright on my frilly pillow. It smells so clean too, she said, picking the pillow up and sniffing it appreciatively. She dislodged Olivia.
Hello, who's this then?
I swallowed. I have this monkey collection, I said hoarsely, waving in the direction of the monkey shelf. They were all neatly arranged, paws folded, tails twirling down from the shelf in little loops. Apart from Gertrude Gorilla, who didn't have a tail and was far too big to sit on the shelf anyway. She sat beside it, her arms out as if she was saying how much she loved me. Tanya hurtled straight off the bed into Gertrude's hairy arms, using her as an armchair.
He tickles,
said Tanya. I decided not to bother explaining that Gertrude was a she. I was getting giddy watching Tanya whizzing round and round my room. I sat shyly on the edge of my bed, as if I were the guest. Tanya still had hold of Olivia. "This one's still my favourite," she said. "She's mine too," I said, pleased. "Her name's Olivia."